I think let's start nice and easy. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of content this morning. I know you've all been here, so maybe you can just tell us what has really resonated to you from the presentation so far. Carl, if I could maybe start with you there.
One that did resonate was all the different attacks that we've seen over the years. I think you went back as far as 2008 or something. The thing that resonated was I didn't see BT as one of those AS numbers on there, so I was thankful of that. But yeah, it's I mean it's just startling, you know, the amount of attacks, and then the more recent ones that Martin's just shown. It's unless you're there googling all the time or looking at news all the time, you don't really know that there's so much going on and so much bad stuff going on. Yeah.
For me, the last comment from Martin, the last presentation about IoT, something that I've been very excited about for some time, because I really see IoT really being the obvious use case to use SCION, because a lot of IoT applications are just not delivered over mobile because there are, you know, perceived risks. And real risks, actually, on IoT networks. I think SCION on IoT is something that should be here and something that should really take the market, because it is the technology for IoT.
And Arne, quick thoughts from you there.
Yeah, I think what comes through in all the panel presentations here is this security topic. And what I wasn't aware is the number of attacks we face, and that it's growing in that amount we see here. And then in combination with that, and I think that's what we also have to take into consideration, because of that, it drives a lot of, let's say, laws which are coming into place now, a lot of regulations, a lot of customer owners which are demanding higher data ownership and data sovereignty. And one thing goes with the other, and the number of attacks, how it's growing, and how we see our data to be compromised, that's really impressive, I have to say.
So I think that there is a consensus here that even though many of us are in this business, we understand that security is still more needed. We're still surprised by the prevalence and number of attacks that still go on behind the scenes every day. So now turning to the topic of this discussion, breaking ground in global connectivity, I think a good starting point is from the beginning, which is looking at the customer. So just tell us exactly what they are dealing with in terms of challenges, but also the trends that they're navigating. Carl, I'd like for you to start this one.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. One of the first things, or three things, choice, the customers are struggling with, and then the complexity that then brings, and then also the skills that's then needed to kind of navigate all these different technology choices. So most of our customers are going through kind of this digital first era where they're wanting to embrace all these new digital technologies, IoT being one of them. And you know, when we look at our manufacturers, for example, you hear a lot about smart manufacturing. They're wanting to use IoT or other technologies such as digital twins to create better, higher quality products and more volume. And you've got the logistics organizations wanting to use digital technologies to shorten that last mile delivery to get the products to the customers quicker. But whilst they're kind of building their technology roadmaps, and that's where BT comes in, it's about how to map those technologies to business outcomes. And it's just the vast amount of technologies out there and vendors out there and the choices they've got that they're struggling to navigate. And you know, BT can help with this a lot. We kind of package our solutions together with multiple products, if you like. But it's just the overwhelming, you know, vastness of choice, like I said, and even when, you know, choosing whether it's a single vendor approach that you go to or a multi-vendor approach, for example, it's just a lot that we've got to kind of help customers navigate through.
Eliseo, what have you seen from a more local perspective from Sunrise? Do you echo a lot of these?
So I would like to echo especially the complexity and the know-how. I think in the past few years we've had the situation where a lot of technologies have come relatively quickly. And enterprise customers tend to make a decision about technology and they stick with it. And then having a flow of technologies coming in, it makes it difficult for the enterprise customers to move so quickly, especially when it comes to know-how and how their people work, and do you have the people that can work with this technology and so on. I would say 3-4 things that we see going on which reflect this complexity have to do with moving to the cloud. A lot happened before COVID, then accelerated during COVID, still going on. We're starting to see companies coming back from their journey from the cloud and opting for even other options like hybrid approaches where they want to have some data on-prem or co-located in a data center, yet some in the cloud. And this needs to be managed, right? And it brings complexity. I think here in Switzerland, working everywhere is pretty much a given. And people expect to work everywhere fast, work everywhere secure, and work everywhere with access to all the applications you have in the office, right? And this brings a problem for security, right? The IT departments have to ensure that you can go into any Wi-Fi network or on your mobile network, and you will work securely. So again, the know-how topic, and security in general. I think it's a prevalent discussion. If it's ransomware, if it's DDoS attacks, other type of more sophisticated attacks, specifically, aimed for specific customers or segments, this continues to be a worry in general. I think the geopolitical situation doesn't help, right? So decision makers are thinking, what's next, and should I be worried about this? At what level? Those are the challenges we see, or some of the main challenges we see in the Swiss market.
Arne, I see you nodding your head a lot in response to Eliseo. Maybe you can add some more light there.
Yeah, I think maybe for the audience, it's also a bit the question, why is the data center provider here? So, because we are obviously not a solution provider, right? So, and I've been here last year, and the call was there, okay, how can we generate the global spread? So, and we are in the discussions with our customers globally about several topics. And we were thinking about, okay, how can we cope and manage the trends and the challenges which are there? And then the idea was also, Carl said it, we have a partnership globally to realize SCION. And as a data center provider, you are the meeting point for data. So, but you're also the meeting point for all the partners. So customers and partners come together there, and we can build proper solutions. So, but we see we are facing the discussions with the partners, how to develop networks, what does IoT mean, things like that. And we are discussing the same things from the challenge side with the customers. So, and there are some trends we see, for example, AI drives at the moment a really big challenge for us to build infrastructure which is capable to manage the 10 or 20-fold of energy capacity. And then it drives, on the other hand, the customer to differentiate for cost reasons and for compliance reasons and for all that, where to put the data and where to compute the data. So, and then it comes to the situation, okay, how can we transport the data from A to B in a secure and data sovereign way? So, and with that, you see all the compliance topics which are coming, for example, at the moment in the financial industry, with NIS2 or DORA, where you have to ensure that you are cyber resilient and you have to do attacks on your own systems and you have to report them. So, and having all of these things in mind, the question is a bit, okay, we had the discussion about the internet and if it's well designed or if it's not so well designed and well developed or not so well developed. And at the moment, for us, it feels a bit like, okay, the network is there and I think it's good designed because it's accepted. On the other hand, it feels like a patchwork. So a new thread is coming, you put a patch into it. New functionalities are coming, you're putting a next patch on it. And then from a compliance perspective, how do we manage, for example, NIS2 or DORA, and document all of that, test it, prove it, report it, all of that stuff. And from our point of view, we think that SCION can also reduce the amount of efforts which are needed for the customers to ensure compliance and to report compliance and things like that. So, and this is the reason also why we would like to contribute in this discussion and also in this panel, because we see bringing together the partners and bringing them together with the customers, we can build proper solutions. And we also would like to take a bit the fear away to test it, because as Carl said yesterday in our discussion, you don't have to revolutionize your network. You can also implement it as a feature and then start from there and grow it and see how it develops and get used to the technology and how to manage it. And that's the reason why I would like to be here and discuss it, because we see that it can bring a lot of benefits on, cost side, also sustainability when it comes to green IT, because reducing efforts and stuff like that is reducing CO2 footprints, compliance, all these things.
And I think it's a really important point you bring up, because so far we've been talking about how to grow SCION, how to take it global, but partnerships is of course very crucial and key. Without that, we couldn't imagine having any of these conversations. And maybe just to give context, you run approximately, 300 data centers across 6 continents, if I'm correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Carl and Eliseo, coming back to some of the trends that you've identified, can we be a little bit more concrete now? What are some particular use cases that we can identify enabled by SCION, and how is SCION different in this regard?
So we're coming back to IoT quite a lot, but IoT is a hugely broad term or acronym. And one of the things that we're involved in for our own personal use is kind of the electrification transformation, so moving to EV for BT. So all organisations have got their own sustainability challenges for their scope 1, 2 and 3, and one of the quickest wins that organisations are seeing is, especially when you've got a fleet like BT's, 30,000 vehicles just in the UK, to move to EV. And then that brings a lot more focus into something that BT generally wouldn't have been involved in. But that focus is driven by the fact of, you then start to realise how much more data points you need to embrace electrification for vehicles, because you've got drivers and engineers that are working to a particular schedule, so they need enough charge in their vehicle at the right time. They need to have a route to their destination that's got charges on the way if they need it, all these different things. And so that meant that we had to think about how you pull different data from multiple places. And so focusing a bit on the EV chargers themselves, we've seen all the big logos kind of pushing EV chargers out there to kind of create scale, because we're all driving to move towards electrification. But what that's done is kind of as a back thought is the security aspects of it. And when you look at EV chargers, they've got typically kind of 5, 6 different data streams happening all the time. It's a communication between the EV charger and the vehicle, then to the management station. Then if you've got payments, if it's a public charge, you've got payments, so then PCI compliance, and then that payment data stream might be encrypted through TLS. But not all traffic is encrypted, but yeah, a lot of these EV chargers are just connected through mobile SIM cards. They might be just a bit hardened SIM card for longevity, but it's still like our mobile phones. And so security hasn't really properly been thought about. And then when countries are now thinking that EV networks are part of critical infrastructure, it becomes even more important. And now, and I said at the start when I was talking with Martin that it's not that there isn't technologies out there to plug these gaps. We all know, we're all sat here, we're all technically minded. It's the vast amount of technologies that you would need to put into an EV charger or somewhere within the mobile networks to solve some of these problems. And we've tested these things, and we've got things in labs, and we've worked with the big oil and gas organisations. And some of it, like I said at the start, brings a lot of complexity. You can put OT threat detection technologies into the mobile network. You can put a firewall, IDS, IPS into the EV chargers if they're big enough to take a box. But it just adds layers and layers of complexity. It is a typical use case for SCION, where an energy ISD for EV. It's a a pretty simple answer to quite a complex problem that we're all hitting. And all the, just to give a few figures, the big organizations out there already telling us that they're getting 20% loss of charges through lots of different ways, some of those cyber, but they're also losing absolutely millions on stolen electricity through cyber criminals. And that's because the security on EV charging infrastructure is just not there yet.
Maybe Eliseo, maybe you can add to that what characteristic of SCION makes it especially compelling or attractive?
So a discussion we had a lot at the beginning of the SSFN implementation was the independence discussion, right? So the banks were operating in a model where Fritz is nodding, yes. They had to speak to every ISP separately, and they had to ask for changes in the paths separately, and so on and so forth. I think what SCION brings is the ability to have a level of abstraction on top of the ISPs, and that helps the customers to have a better transparency and also to be able to redirect their traffic as they see fit. I think that there was a comment earlier in the conference about, what happens if SCION grows too big, yeah? And I think that the hurdle becomes a lot more difficult for two reasons. You have a vertical and you have a trusted network that is so much smaller than, the overall internet. You have a trusted network, you have usually, so in the case of the financial industry or health, you have very, predefined users of the network that can join. And in addition to that, you need to be authenticated into the network, right? So looking up into the technology, you can do that in a very granular way, almost in a one-to-one relationship. You do decide who to talk to, you do decide who can talk to you. And I think in terms of hurdles for attack, even in a larger SCION network, the tools that you get with the technology are powerful enough that you can handle it in a much better way. Yeah? So I think those are the ones that I would highlight: the community aspect, the security, and yes, the vertical, the community approach.
So let me follow up with that. How are you trying to position a SCION internationally, and what have you been hearing from international customers so far?
That's a good question. We've had in the past years, for reasons known to everybody, discussions with Liberty Global about SCION and about the technology, and it was interesting to see how the engineering round, the security people, they just immediately clicked. They got the idea. They say, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Go to market is, of course, a different discussion, right? But I think it was recognized that for a tier 1 carrier, the ability to provide an add-on feature to what is pretty much a commodity, right? Today, internet links between one place and the other. It was quite obvious. I hope that can continue on. The discussions are still ongoing. In Europe as well, we had discussions with some telco partners about the technology, and there the discussion was a bit more on the commercial side, on the go-to-market side. I think SSFN is a poster kid of what can be done, but every country has its own rules and regulations. It's not so easy. But we have perceived in the discussion we've had with Liberty Global and with European partners that they recognize the value. It's a matter to having the right business around it.
Arne, maybe if I can get your quick thoughts here, is SCION still a relatively new topic for many of your international customers? Where are they in that conversation?
I would say it depends a bit on the sector. So if you go to the finance sector, I think it spreads at the moment. But in general speaking, let's say about the globe, it's not yet that well known. I mean, Martin just said, okay, it's picking up. You are quite happy. But to the customers we speak, we often say, okay, did you ever think about SCION? And do you know about SCION? And several of them say yes, and others say no. So we see at the moment also the task for us a bit to spread this information that it's available. And there we have often the discussion depending on the continent, depending on the country, depending on the business they run. Legal certainty, things like that, for example, especially in the finance sector, I mean money laundering and things like that. These topics are picking up. So, and there are, let's say, also the use cases. You asked for the use cases. I think there are also the use cases, and I think that's one of the main advantages that you can. Martin had a nice slide about it, navigating with the GPS or navigating with the compass. You have the ownership of your data on the route you define. And this is one of the main advantages we see and we are discussing with our customers. And there's also where we see, let's say, the play on the globe. And we are going most probably next year, especially for the DACH region also, to present SCION a bit more and make them aware and also do it together with the partners, that they know that it's there and what to use and what is the main use case of it. And there we see also, you know, all the benefits with the partner play to bring in the solution, but have the data under control where it's stored, have the data under control while it's transported.
Over at BT, do you share the same experience, or are customers all like, yes, SCION?
Yeah. From a sector perspective, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'm based in Switzerland, so we hear about it all the time, and even outside of the finance sector, I think it's getting better known for definite. But so the way that BT is approaching this is that you know, we are, and you mentioned about Digital Realty's kind of global coverage. So BT provides managed services across the world. We touch 180 countries, and our network spans to 160 different countries. And the way that, you know, it comes back to what I said around kind of choice and complexity. You know, it's just another technology to talk about with customers. But what BT does, we offer these managed services, and what we see as regards SCION, it kind of complements what we've already got. But still, you know, the question marks out there with the customers are still going to be: does this mean I don't need a firewall? Does this mean I don't need SASE? Does this mean I don't need, you know, secure service edge? Whatever it might be. And there's lots of answers to that, and there's lots of different kind of blueprints that we would put together for a particular customer, but it's about that. And so we're seeing it as kind of that SCION complements everything we do. So we don't go to a customer and say, oh, you know, have you heard about SCION? We are building roadmaps with customers, you know, deciding what their business outcomes need to be, and then we decide, you know, what technologies that brings, because BT does managed service across security, as well as network, as well as telephony, etc. globally. And as regards BT, we are at the early stages of this, so we've started with the SSFN. That was the obvious starting point for BT. We got all the major banks connected already to BT's network, so it was an obvious kind of addition to that, and that's where we're seeing the current pipeline. So lots of banks that may be here today already talking with BT about connections to SSFN. But then we're also having conversations with pharma. We're also having a conversation with energy. So it's proliferating. That conversation is getting out there, and it's like I said, it's about navigating the why. Why do I need SCION? And does that mean I don't need all these other things? That's the complexity that we have to navigate customers through.
Sure. Let's actually steer the conversation now to actual deployment and future steps. I know, coming from Sunrise, SCION has reached a fairly high maturity level within the company. So what future applications could you imagine for this technology?
So as I said before, I'm quite excited about IoT. There's actually a blog coming in the Sunrise webpage in the next few days about the different use cases. We have like 2 or 3 use cases based on 5G. And I think that covers different applications, so really more commercial, say, selling applications, more monitoring applications, and so on. But I think that's where we will benefit a lot. from the technology and also the mobile network. We're continuing to work also with other verticals, health you have heard about. We're discussing also with electricity partners to also deploy the network or the technology in this application. So overall, I think there's now a general interest for the technology and an awareness, and we're just looking forward to get it done.
And over to you, Arne, as a data center operator, where do you see yourself in this bigger picture of the SCION scale-up? What kind of partnerships or collaborations, even people in this room, do you think would be, fruitful conversations for you at lunch and beyond?
Good. One thing is having your data, and the other one is transporting the data. And I think, with the development of cyber attacks, on the other hand, with the protection and all these things, the question is, okay, how can we bring it out that people can try and test it? So, because I think as quicker the people are getting used to it, can, let's say, have a grip on it and get used to the technology, I think the lower the hurdles are coming to really try it out and to implement it. So, and for that, for me, SCION is like a next step. So, and as we heard before, IPv4, IPv6, and then SCION, it's a logical next step. So, and we should, in some way, we should push also our customers to get to know this technology and to try it out. And we have, for the global spread, we have so many different versions now. We have the ISPs, the global ones. I think there could be more adapting to that, so that we come also to the point where this multi-ISP solutions come into place. But we have the first mover now. So, and this should accelerate the whole topic quite a lot. But we need to bring the message out that it's ready. It's not a technology under development. It's there, it's working, it's functioning, and now we need to communicate it.